And greetings, viewers and listeners. Meat Hook Jim here, along with my co-host, Donnie Hoover. Donnie, what is going on today?
Oh, man, all kind of good stuff. Getting close to the weekend. Got a lot planned, so it's time to get busy.
Well, on this episode of the WrestleHorror podcast, we've got a special guest. He actually coined the name Meat Hook Jim. I am, of course, talking about one quarter of the big scary show, Jason Storm. Storm, how is it going, man?
Oh, yeah. Welcome, WrestleHorror. Yes, you're in for a treat tonight. Oh, yeah.
Hi, everybody. All listeners. Jim, Donnie, good to be here tonight.
Oh, yeah. I don't think we've ever started a show off that way before.
No, you've never had anyone channel the ghost of Randy Savage?
Not yet.
That's a good way to say channeling Macho Man Randy Savage. That was great, Storm.
I almost died when he died. They said on the radio, "Oh, Macho Man Randy Savage had died of a heart attack." I almost drove the car sideways, off the highway, just screaming in sideways. Could have been bad.
So, Storm, you and I have known each other for a number of years. We've done Big Scary Show for 8+ now. We're at 8.5, I think.
Something like that.
8 3/5.
But I also knew that you were a big wrestling fan, and that's where I want to steer the conversation initially. Growing up in the Northeast, I'm assuming that you were a big WWF, WWE fan.
Yeah, no, I think the McMahons, Vince and his father, you had to. I think, when you're born in New Jersey or New York, you have to sign over that you're going to be a WWF fan. And pretty much, is the only thing that'd be on, because it'd be on the cable access up here because they get that on there. And then nothing was better than the Saturday night wrestling, which was always fantastic. I'm a night owl. I'd stay up. Oh, Saturday Night Live. Oh, no, it's wrestling. Woohoo!
Was it Saturday Night Main Event? Was that it?
That's it. Yep. And they'd have some good stuff like the Royal Rumble, that type of thing. My father was never going to buy a pay-per-view, so that was like the closest to a pay-per-view that you could get in the 80s and 90s if you weren't buying it.
Okay. So when did you start watching wrestling?
Watch it into that Glow. Glow was like a big thing. That was Sunday after church. We're going to watch the gorgeous ladies of wrestling. And then you catch it when it's on. Sometimes they do recap shows and stuff. And then, when you started having the Monday Night Wars with Raw and Nitro and cable and stuff, get into watching and have it on the Mondays. And then really in college, you'd watch it with other wrestling fans. It's one thing to watch it with, your brother and sister, and you still got to do your homework and stuff that night. And when you're in college, you got a couple of beers and a couple of your buds sitting on the couch. That's when wrestling and their bad writing is the most fun.
Yep.
It's funny you mentioned Glow. And on previous episodes, we've had both the Royal Hawaiian and Hollywood on WrestleHorror.
Oh, fantastic.
Twice.
Yeah, twice each, and I'm sure they'll be coming back again here shortly.
And they've gotten a nice little pop, and people remembering they exist with the I think Netflix series, and that's always a plus. And they are true real wrestlers. I'm glad that some of the shows have gotten back to that. Sometimes pushing a little too much, but the whole diva thing that they're doing years ago, even WCW, it was like, it's a pretty face, and let's see the smallest wrestling outfit we could possibly fit on them. But now you got some really good technical, athletic wrestlers in there, and it's not just harsh screaming. Well, not all the time. They do still use that, which I don't. And then the bad trend that they're doing right now in WWE is they're gluing Muppets onto these poor women's head. Sasha Banks, I just see a purple Muppet on her head. This week they had like Muppets on everybody's head out there. Everybody's got green flowing hair and stuff going on. It doesn't even look right. It's like, oh, that can't be healthy.
Right.
So that's an interesting analogy. I mean, I'm laughing inside. I'm smiling. I know you can't see us, but it's like,
well, I can see you guys. You just can't see me.
Oh, okay. So it's like, oh my gosh, that is just a great analogy. What is your take on the whole, was it Bailey Dose Belts? Is it now that?
It's it's trying to make Bailey into a heel, and honestly, what I was hoping for with Bailey is she just reminds me of Punky Brewster, and she needed an evil millionaire to either make his heart grow 2 sizes or to be corrupted by. So they should have matched her up with the $1 Million Man. I mean, that would have just steal every single episode and script of Punky Brewster and go with it. Have the $1 Million Man learn a lesson, but Bailey also learn a lesson of life. So, they're trying to do the heel thing. They're trying to do the Sasha thing. And they're like, they're going to turn on each other. Maybe not. Do we have anybody else who you care about in this women's division who doesn't scream in some other language, which I don't even think they, Asuka. Yeah, I don't even think she's doing Japanese. I think she's just out there yelling. But you could tell the cultural sensitivity of WWE and Vince when they named the women's Japanese tag team after Japanese historical theater only performed by men. Yes, the Kabuki Warriors. I'm like, hey, Vince! Love the social sensitivity there, Vince. Thank you.
What scares me is I think if any WWE writers listen to the show, they're going to go, that's a good idea.
I've been asking them to steal my ideas for a while. I won't keep falling asleep during Raw.
Oh man, this is very. I love the way you rant, Storm. It's been something that I've enjoyed since we started doing the show, and even when we were doing the old podcast. So.
Oh yeah. I try. I want to bring a little energy and stuff to it, and I got a nice tasty beverage, keep it going. And then, I love ranting about this stuff. And I'm a wrestling fan, but I'm also a wrestling cynic. There are some things that they do with the scripts and going with it. One thing that I hate, and I was thinking about earlier before we came on, I'm like, who are my favorite wrestlers? Who have I liked during the different times and stuff? And, Big Boss Man is one of my favorite because I was an overweight white kid growing up. Of course you love Big Boss Man. Undertaker, he was cool. And, Mick Foley was one who I liked, The Rock. And I was thinking, I never got into Triple H and the whole Degeneration X fans. Never big fans of it. And I was thinking, what is it that I like and don't like about wrestling? One of the things I hate during a match is the fake injury thing. Okay. That gimmick's so played out. Oh, my knee. Oh, but I'll jump off of it this way and stuff. I think it's so played out, and because they sort of want wrestling to be taken more seriously and to showcase the athletics of it, you can't tell if a wrestler has a fake injury or a real injury because they just write both of them in the script now. If it's written into it, it's fake because it's in there with it. So you can't – the storyline's mixed with that. And thinking back, Mick Foley never faked an injury. The Rock, he didn't have to fake an injury. Boss Man, no, he'd usually be unconscious before he'd fake an injury. So, I think that has – shaped which wrestlers I really like, which gimmicks I really like and stuff out there. I just, sometimes like the fun stuff. Stone Cold Steve Austin bringing out some random vehicle at the end and, beer, milk, whoever the sponsor of the week is, that's a fun way to end the show. But even the 3-hour format, I think, starts to lose me too because there's so much stuff in the middle. It's a long day from work. We don't get going with the wrestling till 9. I find myself falling asleep. Like whatever the hell they did at the end of this one with, rioters burning down a fake substation in the back or whatever that they did. I fell asleep through it. I don't know if it's good or not. Shane with, strippers that have change coin machines on their belts because you're not giving them dollars. You're giving them quarters in a ring in a basement with no ropes. I mean, you guys, even with the independent stuff and things, you probably looked at it and go, oh, that's cheap. You didn't even buy any ropes. I mean, at least, put up rope you got from Home Cheapo or something. Why have the poles in a ring if it's just going to be, a performance stage? We're going to do Peter and the Wolf and the little Fight Club vibe to it. But again, no, fell asleep, so I didn't catch anything else.
Okay.
So that's where that payout gets lost.
What I heard is they're going for the whole shoot fight vibe, which obviously is failing miserably in my opinion because it's still scripted.
Yeah, I mean, they're going anything that can go with, and you can script it and be good and stuff. You can let these guys go with. I mean, you guys know with the independent leagues and stuff, you have a little bit of scripting, but it's a little bit more organic. You don't have to try and appeal to every 13-year-old out there because you gotta sell 6 T-shirts or you're done. You can do that with showing the performance of these wrestlers and having them understand their gimmick a little bit, or throw them with a good manager. Let's keep hiding all the good managers in WWE.
Well, I got to agree with you there because working with Donnie at some of his shows, I've looked at his run sheets, and it's pretty much do this, do what you want to do, here's the finish. It's very organic, the matches, and that's what I enjoy about it because they don't have to make Vince happy.
No, and that's how, especially in the independents, that's how you're going to get something to be viral. You can't manufacture something to be viral. You have to have something that really works. One of the things that's gotten overused in WWE, and I don't even know, ACW, whatever it is, AEW, that's it. I see 100 posts on it a day. I can't remember if they really got any traction with any fans and stuff. I love their cruise thing. That was pretty cool. But, when the crowds, when you're at a match 10, 15 years ago and the crowd started chanting, holy shit, it was worth it. Now I think they got plants in there because they're chanting it for no reason, and it's like, oh, you just want this chant going. All right, you're so bored with the match out there, you're just going to chant it so that you get some pop in the room for yourself because the nachos were too expensive. That's the thing, the live shows and house shows, there is such a different feel, and I gotta say that they're good with knowing their city and stuff too. WWE would come to Providence a lot, and Providence isn't really a huge center for them to go in, but you still get 12, 15,000 fans packed in there if you do it right for a wrestling event. But there's some good matches, and they'd really line up some good storyline there. And other than John Cena's father always getting knocked out on the floor and getting to craft services before everybody else, there'd be some good matches. Even that end better than the dark match at the end. The dark match would be a little fun or something here, but I've seen street fights with Hart. I've seen when I always get his name backwards. The yes guy. Shoot.
Daniel Bryan.
Daniel Bryan. I always call him Brian Daniel, by mistake, which is his real name, I think.
Yes. Close.
Yeah. I sometimes I'll get the listeners, if I get the wrestlers mixed up, part of it is comedic effect. Part of it is I forget who the hell they are. So, and it's also annoys some of my, real diehard wrestling fans who take it too seriously. Like, if you think there's a real draft, you're taking it too seriously. But the one where Daniel Bryan was with the Wyatt brothers and stuff, and then he turned back. He took off his gas station overalls and was yesing with the crowd. That was in Providence. That was a fantastic match. I think there's a cage involved.
Say that was the cage match, I think.
It was great. That was a great night. And that wasn't even the dark match. That was just, explosive, and they got some pop out of it. So they've always done good with figuring out what places are really going to pop and who they need to showcase, which I've liked. And I think that's one of the challenges they got now. You're not writing for that rotation. You're not writing for the travel rotation. I think stuff like AEW has actually been good for WWE, because if you didn't have AEW with the wrestlers in the stands yelling, they would never have done that. It would have been like it started out: 2 guys in a ring and a ref, the fans going overhead and just thunk, 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 grunt, grunt, grunt. So the competition, I think, is helping, and that's always been a big push for WWE too. And I think it helps with AEW also. But please, someone pull Jericho away from the buffet, please. I'm a fat bastard too, but dude, I'm worried about you. Oh wow. He was wearing some 40-pound capacity leather pants, and they were about to rip one interview. I'm like, oh my, oh dear, no.
Slacking off on his DDP yoga.
I don't know what it was. It keeps leaving the belt at the Old Country buffet. It's not good.
Well, at least the belt's on John Moxley now.
Yeah, that's a neat pickup. That was good. And that was neat, too, because I don't trust any news source for wrestling either. And oh, he's going to AEW. He's doing this. He's doing that. And I'm like, I don't believe it. I think they're playing it up. And I liked that WWE didn't just bury him. You know, they did play in the script a little bit. Oh, I'm going to sit on the chair and explain why I'm leaving. Oh, I get interrupted. Well, okay, that's good. But they didn't. They gave him a pretty good send-off. They gave the Shield a little bit of a send-off. And goes what may, they didn't fire his wife outright either, which was nice. You know, they especially at that time and how much talent they're rolling through from Orlando and back up there. They could have done that in a heartbeat. They could have buried him in a heartbeat. But I actually thought that was a good direction and way to go. And I'm hoping they understand a little competition will keep both brands fresh.
Oh, I agree. I think the competition between the two is very healthy, just like it was when it was WCW versus WWE. The competition is what kept everything going fresh, new. It wasn't stale. So let's hope it keeps going that way.
And it's neat because they even had some of that going when they didn't have a professional competition. You know, they actually got SmackDown and Raw to be a little bit against each other and go with that. But it's when they started shuffling the decks and doing drafts and doing it every year that's, well, I'm watching the same show. And then, you know, can you really commit 5 to 6 hours a week in wrestling?
Right.
You got to be writing some damn good stuff if you want people to commit, 5-6 hours, almost a work day to just watching wrestling.
Well, I will say that the dark horse in all of this, and I get a lot of flack for this, but I'm a big Impact fan, and Impact is really, really stepping up their game. They've signed some big names, some old WWE talent. And they were trending big time for their Slammiversary pay-per-view recently.
Yeah, their biggest problem is I don't know what the hell station they're on. They're syndicated at midnight next to New Japan Wrestling, and that's not bad. What is it? The Ring of Honor Wrestling? Something's wrong with that. I don't know what they do with that. Something's just wrong with that, and they'd Impact would be right before or after, so I forget which one I'm watching, and you don't make an appointment to watch it or even to set your DVR nowadays. So I think that was their problem is not making that TV deal. At least the Cons knew, get in there, get the TV deal before you even sign the talent.
Well, Impact does have a TV deal because they own the station, or their parent company does, called Access TV. AXS.
Oh, yes, Access, yes.
Yes. So they're on Access every Tuesday at like 8 o'clock now.
All right, there we go. I gotta remember that. They're in between, Metallica concerts and, old Rolling Stone live videos or whatever.
Right. But they're gaining steam. They're gaining recognition. I'm looking for, they're never going to be, in my opinion, up in between those two, but I think they're going to be the close third.
Well, as you guys know, people like a good show, even if it's not, the high end super talent. If you write it and do it well, people would like to see the minor leagues. And
on top of that, they also push the envelope more than WWE and AEW do.
That's a good thing too. It's a target market for that. I have a marketing major, a background with that. That's one of the things I do a lot with Haunting, and one of the things that drive me nuts is, who do you want to market to? Everybody? No, that's not how it works. So if you want to market to an older, more wrestling savvy fan crowd, you can have a lot of success doing that. And I'm sure out of 300 million people in the country, you can pick up 1 million to watch it if you're targeting that exact market.
I agree. I've been asking you a lot and talking to you a lot of questions, a lot of comments, and Donnie's just sitting back there not saying a word.
Who is this guy? Where did Jim?
I'll let it soak in. If they're talking, I'll sit here and listen.
I was going to ask Donnie, do you have any questions for Storm?
I was just going to ask him about, like, he may have done the the Macho Man impersonation, and he mentioned Big Boss Man, and I was just going to ask him who his favorites were, like growing up and when he got into wrestling and all that.
Well, being such a fan of horror and Halloween, of course, Undertaker. Paul Bearer was fantastic. Ooh, Undertaker! Ooh, we got to do something with a casket. I mean, fantastic with that. The Dudleys, like them, and then Bushwhackers. Oh God, I loved when the Bushwhackers came out because they're a bunch of wacky, zany guys coming out, wearing camouflage and doing something goofy. Those are some of my favorite. I did like Big Boss, man. I felt he wasn't used as well in some of his career. He was neat in like house matches too. They would give him some crazy ass, contract in the suitcase before it was, Money in the Bank type of, your career on a pole house match in Providence on a Saturday night. That was fun. And he'd go up against somebody nuts like Randy Orton and stuff and just get crushed. But, he'd try, his shirt would be all untucked, and he'd get back up, and he'd make a good show of it. So it's a bummer. It'd be interesting to see what he could do with his career and if he could reinvent himself, too, after wrestling, and if he'd lived on a little bit. They haven't put him in the fake Hall of Fame yet either, have they? That's still a travesty.
Boss Man? I don't think he is.
No. Well, don't worry. That's another thing people take seriously. And I'm like, no, the Hall of Fame, I am convinced Vince just has it so that he can print it out once a year and wipe his ass with it. I honestly think that's the only reason he does, because there's no, I'm in Rhode Island. I drive by the wrestling headquarters that they're moving to a smaller office soon enough. There's no Hall of Fame in there. You can't go take a tour. You're not going to see any of that. Why? Because it doesn't exist. And it's fun. It's something neat to honor them, but don't get too serious like it's Canton, Ohio. There's no professional writers. Oh, the ballots are in for the Hall of Fame this year. No, they're not. Vince gave you a name of who he wants in and not. No one voted, and then they'll put that in the commentation for, is this a first-round ballot? No there's no Wrestling Writers Alliance or anything out there voting for this. And if there was, their votes wouldn't count for anything. That's the other thing, with the network. There was rumors that the tier system, if you buy the higher tier, you could vote for the Hall of Fame. Oh yeah, Let's see an auditor check those votes. They ain't counting for nothing. That's $5 more a month. That's just going out the window.
They killed that higher tier.
They killed a lot with it. They don't showcase enough with it on it too. And then they shoot themselves in the foot. COVID and stuff. You got the people at home, and they probably could have really kept up the subscriptions and sponsorship, even though they're doing pretty good now because they stopped giving away every other month. If you're a new subscriber in the household, you can do that. And, all right, good. Little Johnny, guess what? You're getting wrestling next month so we can watch SummerSlam. They cut that back, and they've actually seen a jump with the streaming. But I think they could have had it a little bit better if they marketed a little bit more advertising for it on its own network during the wrestling programs. You might have saturated that market. I'm sure there's some second shifters who don't get home to watch Raw, but they're big fans of matches from the 80s and stuff. And then, they also sold all the other rights. If Raw showed up 2 weeks later on a network, I'd probably be watching it more. But, it's you got to find stuff from like 10 years ago because those rights are with Hulu. And then when the COVID started, let's switch on ESPN. Oh, look, wrestling has sold WrestleMania 14 to ESPN, and you'd watch it there. We're paying for the network. I could turn on the match without the commercials, but no, I'm sitting here watching on FX1 or ESPN Ocho or whatever they had it on because, you're not thinking to go with it. So they're not driving non-pay-per-view traffic to the stream, and I think they could, I think, Netflix would be the only one in town for such a long time, and they'd drop all their episodes at once. One of the things I think Disney has done well with streaming is, they'd have episodes come out weekly. So you got to keep coming back. Right. When I do that, I'd see also what other movie are they pushing? What's going on with it? And WWE was doing that for a while, but they're also, you got so much content in your vault, so much neat stuff. but let's spend more money to produce wrestlers in a car driving. And one or two of the stories are fun, but you could really just have them sit in a chair and do that and show some classic matches, you know, MS3K, some of the classic matches without all the production costs. So then, you know, so it's a little bit with it, but yeah, let's make a cartoon of wrestlers if they're at camp. Yay.
I actually got a kick out of that.
You get a kick out of it for like half an episode or something, and, you know, the commercials really beat it up, but really, was it all that different than the Scooby-Doo episode where Kane showed up? No.
No.
Somebody was the voice of Kane in that, which was great because he never talked. I think he grunted twice.
You know, I had to go back to the Hall of Fame for a second. And for what it's worth, I met Macho Man's brother, Lanny Poffo, back, I think, in December, January, somewhere in there. And I actually had the opportunity to put on Macho Man's Hall of Fame ring.
Oh, wow. Awesome.
Look on my Facebook pictures. You'll see.
I think I've seen that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a picture. That's Macho Man's posthumous ring that's on my finger.
That's good. I was reading an article this week, too, that, Hulk had even mentioned that he and Macho Man sort of made up a couple months before Macho Man passed away, which was good that there wasn't that full, real, you know, behind the curtain animosity that there was between them for quite a while.
Right.
Do you ever venture out to any indie shows out your area? Is there any indie promotions out that way?
There actually are a couple indie promotions, mostly out a little bit western of me. I haven't gotten out to any. You know, the ones that would come through, Big Time Wrestling would tour through here a lot, and haven't gotten to any of those. And when some more of my wrestling friends lived out here, they've actually moved. They would, they would be, I go to some of the house shows and stuff, but I think Showcase Pro Wrestling is like out of Woonsocket, Rhode Island. And they'll have some matches and stuff. I just haven't gotten to one, and they're on hold right now.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. They're allowing contact sports in your guys' state?
They're not allowing anything. As a matter of fact, in Rhode Island, they just came up with the COVID police and a hotline number. If you see more than 15 people gathered, you can actually call a number, and they'll send the state police in. So,
really?
Yay!
Wow.
But yeah, no, all the independent shows in the area are shut down because New England's been trying to really keep a cap on it and stuff, which has worked for the most part. But, you know, we're so dependent on tourism in the summer. That was the hope that we could have really had this going downward, but just hanging on at the moment.
We're experiencing something similar in Ohio. There's absolutely no contact sports going on.
Yeah, I was listening to part of your show from last week, and that's tough. And it's weird for something like wrestling too, because it's limited contact. It's not like it's team sport contact.
Right.
So you can, you know, if you get ability to test a little bit, there's a lot less liability. And toughest thing is it being in the indoor places, but you could do wrestling outdoor in the summer. You could do it at, one of these minor league ball fields that aren't being used, even high school fields and stuff. You have it out on bleachers instead of a gym. You can still get a couple hundred people to come watch a show and be pretty responsible with, your social distancing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what they're doing out in Indiana. They're doing like outdoor events and stuff and spreading people out. I've seen a couple of them like that out there.
Awesome. The big thing they've been doing here is like the drive-in type of thing too. And that even if they could allow some type of contact and stuff, and if you go the WWE route, videotape it and then throw it up on a drive-in screen or something, that might be an option. That seems to be where a lot of stuff is going, even with haunts and stuff. If they're going open, they're trying to do a drive-through thing. The zoo here does a big jack-o'-lantern festival every October. And they just announced this week that it's going to be drive-through. So they'll have it through the parking lot, through part of the zoo. So I can't wait to go off-roading in the Aardvark exhibit. But I'm also not sure. I'm on the roads with other Rhode Islanders every day, and it's scary. Yeah, I mean, frightening scary. So I don't know how well a drive-through through the zoo surrounded by scary gourds is going to go. That something bad is going to happen with that, and there'll be a car upside down in a lake or in the penguin exhibit or something.
Yeah, it's like you brought that up. I've heard there's supposed to be people are going to experiment with like drive-through haunts and that kind of thing. What's your guys' thoughts on that? I don't know how that would work if you got a guy with his foot on the gas and you scare the shit out of him. It's like,
Right.
it might not end very well.
I worked at a haunted hayride for 10 years, and even with your own drivers, and it's not even as much as worrying about the drivers. It's your actors. Is that you can drill into them so much that safety, and they get that thrill, they get that overzealous thing, and they'll try and get that last scare in. And with a drive-through haunt, if the people are operating the car, you're hoping people aren't showing up drunk and stuff, but people are. What's going to be that scare too close? What's going to be a passenger get out of the car? What's going to be your actor trying to go for that second scare and the driver's foot steps off the brake and, it run over a leg or a toe or something? That's a best case scenario. There are some things that can go wrong. And as you know, especially if you have this size for an outdoor haunt, you're not on level ground either. So, a car, you take the brake off and it can get rolling real quick and can be real sudden. And the lighting is the other thing too. When we're doing a hayride, they'd be the same drivers knowing the same track so that they could drive in the dark. So where are you going to have headlights on? They're going to blow up all your scenes and stuff and take away what you're hoping to express, or come up to the scene and turn off your lights. Well, you've already overexposed everything to the light. You've gotten there. Now your actors, their eyes got to adjust and to know when to go and stuff. It's not impossible. Can be done the right way. It's just going to take a lot of extra precaution and some creativity, which is the neat thing with haunters and wrestlers. One of the big things that are shared, and I think that's why it's such a cross market, is its acting and creativity. So while you get some of the egos, you can see them step up to something like this. I think you'll see more haunted themes, more haunts this October being able to run than some of your Christmas-like themes. I think you'll see Christmas things really cut back because it's going to be so much harder for them to do any type of seasonal thing. I mean, if we're still in the same type of scenario as we are now, will they let children sit on Santa's lap at the mall?
Good question.
Yeah, I mean, it's I think Halloween haunters, I think they can step up to this if they need to, if they can, if they have the ability to. But it'll definitely be interesting after it, and hopefully it can be. You do a haunt, you do it responsible. Maybe that can open up the door so that, states will be a little bit easier to have independent wrestling shows. Oh, look, this haunt was able to do it. We didn't have an outbreak with it. This January, we're going to let independent show with a cap of 200 people or whatever, go. We're going to have that contact sports with these restrictions because some things were able to be done. So hopefully, haunters, you can do it right, and you could set example for some of these states and really be a showcase.
So, Storm, you've got your thumb on the pulse of what's going on in Rhode Island haunt-wise. Have you seen a lot of closures up that way?
Not the big ones here. The biggest thing has been Salem has just announced they're not doing any of their city sponsored events. So the city sponsored parade, the fireworks, some of your outdoor markets and stuff, they've already said we're not doing it this October. And that's a big blow. That's a big tradition thing. But that doesn't mean there won't be private events. It doesn't mean there won't be, just people showing up to Salem in the festive attitude. Right now, that's the biggest one. I'm watching, some of the bigger haunts up here. We don't have some of the giant theme park haunts that you'd think. The theme parks up in New England are quite small, the handful that we have. And the three theme parks in the area really aren't known for their haunts either. It's a Six Flags, which is like the smallest one of them all, but it's way out in Western Mass. I think the Big E was canceled. I don't know if they've done a haunt there. Big E is like a state fair, but for all of New England. But I haven't heard on some of the bigger ones here, like Spooky World. I think Haunted Overload is still planning to go. They just gave a little tour to some New England haunters this past weekend. But, they've always done time ticketing. They've always had the limit availability because it's just so popular. And, they're a charity-based haunt, and the way they've worked it out, their overhead is real low. So they can probably go and work it out. I don't know if something like Spooky World, Nightmare New England is going to be able to, because that's, like a 8-9 house attraction haunt, the overhead and everything with that. You get to such a limit, you got to have X number of thousand people a night or you're losing money. So I don't know. They might have to look at that line and draw it. And I think they're all playing it by ear with the states and hoping for the best, or if they got to do a toned down show.
Well, we're seeing, I've been watching Scare Factor's website and, trying to keep track of who's closing and who's not. And, I think the big thing that shocked a lot of people was Halloween Horror Nights at Universal shutting down for the year. I mean, granted, given the fact that Florida is becoming like the number 2 hotspot, it makes sense, but still a big blow to the industry.
Real bummer. And even some of that wasn't as much as the hotspot blow up as the financial situation Universal is. 2 weeks before they announced that they weren't doing Halloween Horror Nights, they did a huge cut of their creative and back of the house people, your accountants, the people who would build those sets, who would set that type of stuff up, who would write the stories and stuff. And part of me was hoping that wasn't an indicator for their seasonal events, because maybe they'll just whip out what they used last year and hope for the best.
Right.
But I think that played into it too. I think, the changeover, the promotion of it and stuff there. And when Florida did open up these parks, they didn't see as big of a pop as they had expected. So I know that there's a lot of hesitancy for tourism. So could you do Halloween Horror Nights and scale it back? Yes. Are you going to hit the threshold where you're not losing more money by trying to do it? And I think, the bean counters looked at it and said, that's not going to work. And creatively, do you want to do, there's nothing worse a haunt than a slow night that you just don't have that feel to it. That's, if you want to burn out a haunter, string together a slow night, bad weather weekend.
Oh yeah.
It's
that was every weekend at our trail.
And it is, and that's the thing, that it makes it harder for you to want to do it the next year and put the energy into it. And I think that's part of some of these theme parks and stuff too. That's not just a money bottom line, but they do have to invest so much into it, and your creative people invest so much into it. Is just going to burn them out and try so hard and see it fail, or do you take a year off? So that's why anybody out there, don't guilt any haunts that don't run this year.
Right.
If they think that they can do it and come back, go for it. We see so many haunts year after year that will try and say, oh, we're going to take a year off, and they never open again. Hopefully, decisions and stuff that's being done, we see these haunts come back for 2021.
Now, I've never been to Halloween Horror Nights. Do they do a Congo line style with the customers, or is it groups, or?
It depends on nights and stuff. I haven't actually gotten down to the Halloween Horror Nights. I've had some friends who've worked with it, but they will have some constant flow. I think they've been working to, especially in the houses, but they have their shows and stuff. It's more immersive, especially at the theme parks. It's not just walking through a house with a constant flow. You'll have that, but you also have the setup outside of it. You have your queue line actors aren't working a queue line. Unfortunately, your beer garden salespeople are, which is a whole nother awful mix. But, what would be a queue actor for a haunt like ours are out in midways and entertain with that. And you still have the rides. So you can have capacity, and people are at a show or at a ride or going through the house. So it's not the full crushing constant flow. And the other good thing is too, they have such wonderful designers and stuff for their mazes that you can build that with constant flow in mind and still have that immersive scare, still give that ability to actors. One of the best uses of that, which would work with constant flow. I remember there's a haunt I went through on a tour years ago in Ohio. I don't remember exactly which one. And it had like a spinning disc at the end of the hallway, and it was lit up, and it was like over the doorway you walk through, but you couldn't see because the room was dark, and it was on a little ramp down, and you couldn't help but look at that spinning disc. So it drew your eye level up there, and you're able to be surprised at actors at the end of the ramp because you weren't anticipating them. You were just pulled up to that. And that's something that, is effective for a constant flow. When you have a busy haunt with something like that, you're pulling the eye level away someplace so you can get a fast scare in another direction. One of the things we did on our walkthrough at the Trails of Terror where I worked, one of my favorite things we did is in between two scenes. We had a really dark area in our trail. We wanted to do something, but we weren't sure what. And there's a soundtrack, I was in the haunt industry at the time, and it was just children singing Ring Around the Rosie and laughing. And we just put that on an event box out in the woods. So when the group was leaving one scene, the actor could hit a doorbell, and that would trigger the event box, and it was on like a 45-second delay. So they'd be between the two scenes in the dark, and then you just hear Ring Around the Rosie. Just think of it like 2 octaves higher. And these children singing it in the woods, and people thought all hell was about to break loose. And they were just so messed up by the time they got to the next scene because literally shadows are jumping out at them when no shadows are jumping out. Oh my God, I see the actor there. And I'm chuckling because I'm like 20 feet down the path. And I'm like, there's no one out there. That's fantastic. So, even with constant flow and, nowadays, social distancing, trick-or-treating, build your candy pulse now, everyone. You could do it. You could be clever with it. And, you could save Halloween and still have it fun.
Storm, I got to say, you hit the nail on the head with Halloween Horror Nights. I've actually been twice, and it is very immersive. And the queue lines are actually in the midways, very entertaining. It's something I've never seen before, and really, it's just it completely. You said it, completely immersive. We went through, I remember one in particular went through a sound stage, and on the inside it was built to be a vampire castle, and the detail was second to none. Beautiful.
Incredible. And that's a neat thing with constant flow is you can catch that detail.
Yes.
Half the time you have a good house, and if you have breaks in between the groups, people would ask while I was a queue actor, how long does it take to do the trail? How fast can you run? Because it could take an hour to walk through it, but usually people are getting through it in about 30 minutes because they were picking up the pace if there wasn't someone hiding in a hoodie 4 feet in front of them.
Yeah. We had something similar when I worked at the Dent Schoolhouse back in the detention hall maze. They would ask me, because I was working the queue and the maze itself, and they'd say, how long does it take to get through? I said, well, how bad do you want to live? I said, it can take you 5 minutes. It could take you 30. I kept people in that maze for over an hour.
Oh, yes. That's fantastic. I do always love the stupid questions. I'll tell a quick story and then I'll ask a quick question. You guys find this with wrestling. Okay. Sometimes people ask the weirdest, dumbest stuff in the middle of a show. Like I'm sitting there or standing there under a big sign that says Trails to Terror. And the people will ask me, is it scary? And I'd look at them, and especially if it's my, more demonic Sideshow Barker character, and I would go, well, it ain't Trails to Rainbows. So, people just asking the obvious. Do you guys see that with the independent shows? Are people like, oh, are they going wrestle?
Yeah, well, I've had people ask if it was fake and stuff like that. But the funniest dumb question I've ever encountered was because I wrestled myself back in late '90s, early 2000s, and I did a lot of bleeding in my matches. And I was doing this one match, and I got hit with the chair. So of course I hit the gimmick, and I started bleeding, and I rolled out of the ring. So my face wasn't bleeding. Yeah, I didn't have like a lot of blood on my face. And I rolled out of the ring, and I sat up, and I'm in front of this family, and the blood just starts like pouring down my face, and it's obvious I'm cut, I'm bleeding. And the mom asked me, she's like, "Is that fake blood?" I was like,
Yeah,
I just kind of,
yes, we have super Hollywood special effects, so it's pouring out my forehead with no visible lines. Yeah.
right. Yeah. I just kind of looked at her, and I was the heel, so I just made like, I don't even remember what I said to her. I made some shitty comment to her, and just like whirled over and got up. I was just like, that was the dumbest question I ever heard.
That's fantastic. I do love how people can't understand the difference between scripted and fake. You know, just throw it in there. Scripted, it's fine. I mean, it's, people, especially in the 90s and stuff, and I've, watched wrestling and see if anybody else at work, and like somebody in the accounting department would go, "Well, how can you watch that? It's all fake." And I look at them and I go, "Well, so's Friends." And do you ever sit there and hope that one day someone would just pick up a folding chair and hit Ross in the head? Well, that can happen on wrestling.
Yep.
That's exactly it. It's and I know a lot of wrestlers, and it just chaps their ass when people say it's fake, because it's not. They are very athletic people, and it takes a lot to do what they do.
Oh, absolutely. Doing your own stunts. And it is fantastic athletic. And, I think that's what bothers me with, like I said at the beginning of the show, how I hate the fake injury, because that's taking away from the athleticism and the story you're writing of, the skill against each other. You see somebody do a good backflip, they're there. You hate when they push a wrestler who's not ready for the ring. You could see the other wrestler directing them, seeing them, oh, you're not selling that kick. Oh, you missed them by a mile. No camera angle can hide that one.
Right.
Maybe they moved you up a little too quick because, you're 8 feet and you look like the flavor of the week. Bummer. Work with that, but that's the thing. It's, oh, that part of it's fake. Don't have to worry about. Leave it to the writers. No, that's where you really got to build yourself. And that's why, you don't just invent a wrestler and have it work. They got to, break their teeth and get their chops coming up through independent wrestling leagues, 4-on-1s, because that really develops their character and how they can sell it. The writer's going to get you there. I mean, the best story in the world is, Stone Cold Steve Austin was supposed to be the ringmaster. And he said no. And, he had a chance of getting fired with that, but he'd known that he can use his tough guy, Stone Cold image and not be the ringmaster. That's a very different alternate reality that could have unfolded right there, people.
Oh, absolutely. That would have been a completely different, it would have buried him. But, you mentioned about how the injuries and how they work, and a prime example is my daughter, as you know, I've said it many times, she's training. She was at rehearsal or training 2 nights ago, and her cheek met the turnbuckle without a pad.
Yeah.
Completely unscripted, but it happened.
Yes.
And she split open her cheek hitting that turnbuckle.
Yeah, and that's a real injury. How is that? You got the people in the thing thinking it's fake because they would written in the show is could have been 3 weeks ago with somebody hitting a turnbuckle and acting all woozy, or hitting the turnbuckle and their knee buckling and stuff. That's one of the lines which I think you want to be taken more as a sport. You want some of your storylines to be taken more seriously. Don't play around with stuff like injury, especially when injuries are such a real thing with the industry. Right. Do not murder Rey Mysterio. Send him off the building and say nothing of it. Oh, look, Rey Mysterio just plummeted to his death. Oh no, he's there next week. Well, I mean, they got me. I watched the eye for an eye match or whatever stupid gimmick they're going with that. I'm like, how are they going to do this dumbass thing? And they're pushing my eye against stairs. When Rollins comes out with freaking pliers, I'm like, well, that's the least efficient thing to take someone's eye out. I mean, come out with a scoop or a screwdriver or something. Ooh, look, I got pliers. Ooh, and which he never uses. But then, we did it. We ripped out Rey Mysterio's eye, and it has mysteriously grown back. He still has his vision, and it's there because Rey Mysterio can die off the side of a building and then grow his eye back. I'm like, you guys can, they love their loose ends and never putting them back together. Like, Vince blew up once, if everybody doesn't remember that.
I remember that.
Any fan does. I mean, it was well done, made it look like he was in there, a good edit, and they blew the hell out of some rental limousine. Unfortunately, there's some tragedy later, so he had to come out of hiding and come out on the stage. So we never knew exactly what it is. But let's just ignore we blew up Vince. Let's ignore that Triple H once kidnapped Stephanie and got married in a drive-thru or something before they actually got married and stuff. Was it Jericho? I think he had kidnapped China and was pulling out her fingernails with pliers once. I mean, I love these unfinished storylines that we'll just never mention again. Paul Bearer, I think he was buried under 6 tons of concrete once and then showed up like a year later. Oh, I'm fine.
Yeah, I dug my way out.
Yeah.
But, there is a very real injuries like, what was it, Psycho Sid.
Mm-hmm.
When during a match he landed on his leg and it immediately snapped, and it's on video all over the place.
Oh yeah, and that's the thing that when they do the fake, I hurt my knee, it takes away from that kind of stuff,
Right?
And the respect you'd have for that wrestler, and I think it takes away from the pop of them coming back. Oh, is this a fake industry because they went to go get a boob job? Is this a fake industry because they just wanted a break in rotation? There's no sympathy when they come back. One of the best comebacks was freaking Triple H when he ripped his freaking hamstring off the bone. Mm-hmm. That he really had to work and push to come back to that. And that's a showcase, and I think that's why his career didn't falter with that. And even to today, he might ride down the motorcycle ring and get all greased up and roll around with another 45-year-old with a hammer. God, I hated that Undertaker match where they just rolled around with a hammer. But he can still pull in a crowd for that. He can still showcase it, and that's because he really didn't fake injuries, and he came back from it, and you knew the story of it, even if you're a casual fan.
Right.
Yeah, speaking of coming back from real injuries and Rey Mysterio's eye, people forget about Vader too, where Vader his eye came out during a match with Stan Hansen. And I don't know if you guys even knew about that one or seen it or anything.
I think I'd heard rumors on that, but you hear a lot of rumors about Vader and some of the other guys they hang within the day.
Yeah, the video's on YouTube. If you just type in like Vader loses eye or Vader
Stan
Hansen, yeah, it can't. It's like, I mean, it's still being held in by his eyelids and stuff, but it's out. It's
I think I might have to be. I might have to be considering a tattoo level drunk to search that.
Yeah.
And to listeners, I have no tattoos, so that's a lot of alcohol.
Wow, this has been a great hour, Storm. You have just been very animated, as you always are, and I think this episode's going to really.
It's all the cocaine.
But we're going to wind it down here. So, I'm not going to tell people all the social media stuff. The social media stuff. How can people find out more about you and about Big Scary Show?
BigScaryShow.com. That's the best place to go, because then you'll find our links to, our Facebook pages, our Instagrams. We might even still have a Twitter and stuff on there, but that's where you go. BigScaryShow.com. You see our wonderful sponsors. You see our shows, and you can find out all the neat ways to listen to us when you want to pull up a new episode, how to subscribe, what streaming things we're on, all of them. what smart speakers were on. All of them. Try it out now. Hey, Alexa or whoever's in the room or whatever. What's the weather? See, I just screwed you up. But, ask your smart speaker to play Big Scary Show podcast. Just test it out right now. Go ahead, try. We'll come back to you.
Now,
but
on Alexa and all that, did you guys have the full episode, like the length, time-wise? Is it nice?
Not only that, but what's neat too is it'll pick up where you left off on some places. I know, one I go through goes through Apple Podcasts or Apple Cast or, Apple Teeny or whatever the hell they're calling it now. And so, I could be doing it during dinner, stop the show, and then on Wednesday, turn it back on, and that's where I left off, which is awesome for long format podcasts, which is neat. So check that out.
Yeah, I don't even think we've really talked about it much, Jim. What all do you guys have on Big Scary Show? I know it's like he said, it's a long form podcast. It's a couple hours more each episode, and I know you guys got the round table and all kind of different stuff on there.
Well, we've got a round table of terror is our signature segment, and we talk to people in the industry, the haunted attraction industry, about different things. We talk to charity haunts, home haunters, mask makers, actor managers. We're doing a round table this week on actor training, I believe. And
very, very industry specific during the summer and leading up to Halloween. We also will talk with horror. We've talked with wrestlers.
Right.
We'll bring in anything with the pop media and anything that inspires. We're a haunted industry podcast, but it's anything that inspires it. You guys are a wrestling podcast, but you touch on anything with it. And if you like the athletics, if you like the wrestling, if you like the friggin', these goofy game shows they're on now, like the Ultimate Tag and stuff, you might want to listen to something like this, because this is where you're going to hear people who might be training for that, or the people who have a story and that type of athlete that you got entranced by without having to lose family members to car accidents and stuff like everybody on Titan games, apparently.
And we are very comprehensive. We cover everything. I mean, there's a lot of haunt podcasts out there that are very specific, but we just cover, we're like a coverall. I mean, we've got the Deadline News, which Badger does, which is, the current news that's going on in the industry. Storm rants on. He finds something to rant on every episode in a haunt minute. And he really pulls some current stuff out of there and he just, you have to listen to him. You heard him on this show, listen to him on the Haunt Minute. Myself, I'm doing a segment called Between the Corpses. And right now I'm going through a run of different funeral practices in different countries. And of course we've got Jerry Vane, the Haunstrumentalist, that he pulls out, he gets and reaches out to horror musicians, and we play different types of horror music to fill in through there. We've got Storm pulls out old horror movie trailers that we put in between. We've got Eric Weister, who does his Haunted Vista about whatever he wants to talk about. He's done, I think he's on a 20-part segment called The Horror of It All. He's on number 5 or something like that right now. But we cover the whole gamut of the industry.
Yeah, very cool. I do have a question for Storm. I want to pick his brain a minute, because you know how we always try to have our guests talk about a certain topic and give some advice. And I was looking at his bio today, and something jumped out at me that we've never really talked about here on WrestleHorror, and that's where he says he's got experience with voice work. So it got me thinking of like what all type of voice work could be done in the haunt industry. And, it got me thinking like, voice work for like animatronics, or like he said, the girls, doing Ring Around the Rosie in the woods and that kind of stuff. Can you talk a little bit about voice work and haunt industry?
Sure. It's actually something that gets overlooked a lot of times too. Well, first of all, your advertising. If you're just, and even for wrestling and for promotions too, if you're just handing off to a radio station for them to make a show, they have no idea about your industry. For haunted things, if you say, all right, here, make this, they're going to do what they think is scary, which means they're going to play Thriller in the background that they shouldn't, and they go, ooh, spooky haunted and stuff. So, with voice acting work, you can do with your characters. You can work with it to actually have something to pull into it, to give it more depth, to tell the story you want to tell, and give them those selling points into it. So advertising is a big thing with it. What I did a lot, voice work for the haunt I did, we had a 30-minute hayride, and that had a full soundtrack with a complete narration. And we didn't have an actor on there narrating as it goes. This was all an MP3 file, so it's the same one for each show, and the actors could concentrate on acting. You didn't have somebody burning out their voice or talking into a microphone, not have it working. You know, you didn't want it sounding like a Burger King speaker. We had some kicking amps on our friggin' hayride, you know, for a bunch of farmers and, you know, backwater, you know, blue collar guys. We got some bass out of these old speakers that just be underneath a hayride trailer, which was awesome. So you have to do different characters and stuff and really tell your story during a 30-minute hayride. So I think something like that's lost. And then, you know, we'll mainly a lot of voiceover work for advertisements and stuff we'll do with our sponsors with the podcast, and then just throwing a little flair to it. But it's something that's in there, and you can just add to your scene and stuff. You know, just even phrases and words, we've done that and played around with it. You could drop the tone, you can have it go backwards. We had a bus scene where you'd have to walk through a bus, which was pretty cool. And it was a little mini school bus, and we took just a regular singing, the wheels on the bus go round and round, and we slowed it down by about 60%, and it is nightmare inducing. So little stuff like that, and you don't have to go out and, you know, hire a band and stuff to do this. You play around with your voice a little bit, and, you know, run it through the thing. You can sing, you know, Ring Around the Rosary, and, you know, throw up the pitch a couple points, and you got your own thing to go.
Very cool. Yep, just another facet of the haunted attraction industry that people don't really think about, and it's a very important part of it.
Awesome.
I've done a little bit of voice work. Backwoods Oddities, who's been on our show several times on Big Scary Show.
Great friend of the show.
Yeah, and he's been on WrestleHorror as well. In the first year that I dealt with him, he contracted me to do some voice work for the intro to his haunt. And I did like a 2-minute narration as people were prepping to go into the haunt.
Best way to save your house rules. We figured that out. Instead of having, you know, somebody taking tickets and explain your house rules, just run a soundtrack at the beginning of it. Have them hit a doorbell button for an event box, or run it every, you know, 6 minutes or whatever. You know, record when you can. You can add in the effect and go with it. You can even find a little bit more talent in some of your actors. You know, you can get them to sit down and do part of it, and then they find that vested interest in it. You have them do something a little bit like that. You add their voice to it, and they're making sure to promote their friends. Hey, make sure you come out this weekend and you go to, you know, the graveyard scene in the churchyard, and you're going to hear my voice telling you which cemetery stone to watch out for.
And on top of that, when we do the intros for the Big Scary Show, we rotate. And sometimes we just do our normal thing, our normal voice, but other times we embellish and we make a little mini show out of the intro.
We go wacky, zany radio show hosts every once in a while. I think I've done monster truck ones. So it gets interesting. It depends, you know, how much coffee I've had, and if it's 2 a.m. when I'm remembering to record.
Nice.
So you know, this has been awesome, Storm. The time is winding down.
Absolutely, and we don't want anybody admitting to murder on their Twitter during this. So, you know, we don't want to keep this too long.
All right.
Right. But once again, thank you so much for coming on the show with us.
Absolutely.
I'm glad that you were able to do so. I know you being a big wrestling fan, I knew it would be entertaining, and you did not disappoint. And I would not be too surprised if this episode gets some good numbers.
Yeah, hit the numbers. Tell your friends about it.
Absolutely. I will let you know when this goes on the air, but for now.
Awesome. I need to bother all my wrestling friends with, here, you're going to watch, you're going to listen to this.
Absolutely. They've got to, make them listen. thank you again so much for myself and Donnie. We are the Wrestle Horror Podcast with our special guest, Storm from the Big Scary Show. And we will catch you on the next episode.
Thank you. And thanks, everybody, for listening. Thanks, guys. It's been great coming out tonight.